All right, friends, Zig starting off. Today on the show, we have Robert Kidney of the Numbers Band. Now, if you've noticed in the last few interviews when I've talked to some Ohio legends, every time the Numbers Band is brought up, there's a shift in the conversation, and it becomes serious and sincere. There is nothing but utmost respect for this guy. You can hear it with Chris Butler, David Thomas, and Marky Ray. There's a shift in the conversation. And if you've ever listened to the Numbers Band, you know why. They've been around for 50 years now. They have a new album out called Endure, came out in 2020, and it kicks ass. The Numbers Band's unique blend of country eastern music is continued on this record and comes at you full force. So I highly recommend you check out Endure. It's available on streaming platforms, as well as if you go to the Numbers Band website, you can get a copy of it there. There's also a documentary coming out, Out of Obscurity and Into Oblivion, a film about the Numbers Band by local filmmaker Jason Purfer, P-R-U-F-E-R. Sorry if I said that wrong, Jason. But that should be coming out here in a few months. It was supposed to be in the film festival, but because of COVID, stuff got shifted, and it looks rad. When I was doing my research, I came across that, and I read the date wrong. I'm like, oh, it's out, and started manically looking for it to find out that it hasn't come out yet. But that's something to watch out for. It looks sweet. If you haven't seen the trailer, check out the trailer. But yeah, no, this was a super awesome conversation. It was truly epic. There's Howlin' Wolf piss stories. What the fuck? It doesn't get any cooler than that. With this interview, I was kind of in awe, in a way. I was just listening intensely. And sometimes I find myself doing that a little bit too much, where I'm so enwrapped in what whoever I'm talking to is saying, like when it comes time to like respond back, or they're looking at me like, are you even listening? And I'm like in it. So there's moments in there where I'm like in this conversation just listening, and it's like, is this interesting? I'm like, yeah, piss story of the Howlin' Wolf is super interesting. So all right, friends, before we get into this episode, this podcast is mixed by Studio 44. Studio 44, if you have any audio, video, or stream needs, you can reach out to Jay Sparrow at Studio 44 Cleveland at gmail.com or Studio 44 Cleveland on Facebook. They can make your stuff sound as good as this stuff. Also, if you can like, subscribe, rate, review the podcast on all the podcast platforms, it helps me keep talking to cool people and sharing those insights with you. And without further ado, we're going to have Robert Kidney Part 1. So let's jump into it. Let's kind of get up to where we're at now. When did you get your first guitar? When did guitar become your mode of expression?
I was in sophomore in high school, and I went to visit a friend of mine, and he could play his father's guitar. His father was a guitar player, and his father taught him. His father was a World War II era veteran and played standards and stuff.
So like big band stuff, swing?
Well, I don't know. Just the way the guitar players played back then. Full chords and, you know.
Yeah, like...
So he knew about chords, and he knew about a bunch of stuff, and I was sitting on the bed across from him, and he started playing his guitar. And the sound of the instrument came across the room and hit me in the chest. And when it hit me in the chest, I knew that I should play this instrument. And that's when I started learning to play. He lent me this guitar, and I started learning to play, and he showed me a little bit. But back in that era, which was about 63, there was this... it was actually the second big folk movement in the country. It included a lot of... It was a lot more controlled by the industry. So you had television shows called Hootenanny and Shindig, and you had the Kingston Trio, and you had the Christie Minstrels, and there were all these sort of groups that were focused into a popular music vein, doing sort of pop and versions of folk songs. Okay,
Yeah.
the Kingston Trio was the one that I probably focused most of my attention on. And him and I and another guy did a couple of live performances that were, one of them was in a junior high school gymnasium. And I always enjoyed singing very much. I sang from when I was a child, and I blame the fact that I sing on my mother and my aunt and my third grade music teacher. She made me the star of this German children's opera, very famous Hansel and Gretel. So in my grade school, I was Hansel and sang Hansel in this children's opera. And of course, I didn't know anything about the dialogue. I didn't learn anything. All I did was know the songs. And this woman named, we were such children, of course, and she gave me all my lines. Her name was Ruth Ann Cates. But I always loved singing. I loved singing in choirs. I did all of that type of thing, church choirs and all that. So these two things combined, and I was singing with him. He played the guitar, another guy sort of played bass, and I sang songs. But we were just horsing around, but then I became very serious about the guitar, and he helped me find one. It was a classical guitar. My mother purchased it for me for I think it was my 15th birthday. And then I began to learn to play it very seriously. And by then, there was the huge English thing and Bob Dylan and all this other stuff happening, all of which I was influenced by, including jazz. But I was learning to play the guitar and focusing on songs that I could understand. And of course, Bob Dylan was the focus of that because he was very popular then. And I had destroyed this classical guitar. I put metal strings on it. I bought a harmonica and a rack and was ruining and just destroyed the thing.
Yeah.
And then my mother helped me pay for a Gibson guitar with my paper route money. And that was my first instrument. And I was about 15 or 16. I still have it. It's sitting there behind me.
Also an acoustic?
It's right here.
Yeah, was it also an acoustic guitar?
It was all acoustic.
Okay. Cool.
Acoustic.
Gotcha.
And then I began to get very serious, and it's complicated, very complicated. I learned to play the instrument I bought a sing-along with the Kingston Trio album.
Okay.
And it had guitar chords and the record, and they sang, and you could sing along, and you could play the guitar.
Okay.
But I didn't really care for the record, but across the bottom of the record, the double record album LP, all the guitar chords were there.
Yeah.
All the guitars with the little diagrams. They were all across the bottom of this album. And I began to play them, playing the formations. And I played them every day. I played along the formations over and over and over again until I could change them faster and faster. Then I began to play them the other way. I'd go one, and then I'd reverse them and go the other direction. Then I began to start in the middle, and then I began to do anything, any way I could, and to keep the speed up and to keep the sort of improvisatory approach to it, so I was not doing the same thing every day.
Right. Then it's playing, and it's fun.
And I did it for a very long time. And in the meantime, I'm listening to the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, and I began to understand some of the things that they were doing. So I began learning Rolling Stones songs like It's all over now. Some of those wonderful things they did.
Yeah.
So I'm combining folk music and rock and roll, and that's kind of where it went for a long, long time. I played folk music by myself for many, many years. I started playing in places called hullabaloo, where they'd have rock bands play top hits, and then I play on the breaks.
Okay.
And then I began to find these places that were called folk houses, and I began to play there, and I was developing the ability to perform. And then I started playing, I played at Kove in Cleveland. You probably don't know Kove, but I played there, and I opened for Janice Ian, and I opened for Linda Ronstadt, and I opened for some of these people you probably are not familiar with, the Jim Queskin Jug Band, and they were all
cool.
These were touring acts at the time, and I just walked in and I'd play what I play for free, just to play.
Right.
And I remember Linda Ronstadt watched my performance. She was touring with the Stone Ponies.
Okay. Wow.
At the time on a hit called Different Drum.
Yeah.
And she was very young, as was I, and she listened to my set, though. She's very unusual. She came over and took me aside. She said, I think that you're pretty good, but you should probably look at the audience once in a while. Because I was very shy, and when I played, I sang into the microphone, just looked down. I set the microphone below my face and looked down at the stage and played. So I was extremely shy, but I also had this passion to play. And then I joined working with the guy who played harmonica, and then we played a place over in Akron for years called The Birth. And
was this with Gary Hawk?
How do you know him?
Was it? I've done some research, my friend. But
yes, Gary Hawk.
Okay.
Gary Hawk came to see me. I played a place in Kent, Ohio, across from the university called the Needle's Eye, I believe it's called. And he came to see me there. And he was just there, and I performed. He wasn't there to see me. He was, and he really, really was impressed with my performance. I had written a song called Powder Blues about heroin. And he asked me if I was using heroin. And I said, no, I don't even drink. And he said, well, it's certain, the song, he thought I was a heroin addict.
Yeah.
Because of the
narrative.
It was genuine. It felt genuine to him.
Yeah.
And we became friends, and he was a harmonica player, and at the time, he had been in a motorcycle accident and was using a crutch and a brace. And then we started playing this place called The Birth.
Okay.
In Akron. And we played there until I was forced to go into the armed services during the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And I won't get into the story as to why, but I ended up in the Navy, and then I got out of the Navy, and it's all very complex, but I got out of the Navy with an undesirable discharge, an undesirable person. I knew that, they knew it. So I came home, and when I came home from the service, are you interested in any of this?
Yeah, no, I'm listening. Like with these interviews I've been doing, it's I write all these questions, and when the narrative happens, or when someone, I just tune in. So I'm listening, even though you can't see my face. I'm like, but like, No,
Well,
so
anyway, when I
okay,
got home from the service, one of the first persons I went to visit who had gotten a deferment for college was Gary Hawk.
okay,
And he said that he had a band now, and it was called Pig Iron. And I said, oh, wow, that's really great. I'm really glad you got a great band. And they were all living in Wadsworth, and he was living in
right,
Wadsworth, Ohio, and the band was from Wadsworth. And he said, yeah, we're playing at the Akron Art Museum. And I said, well, I'll be there. When I came to the Akron Art Museum, between then, when I went to service and when I got out, the berth was closed by the Akron Police Department because they were selling drugs. People were selling drugs in the club. So the music scene had kind of dissolved and shifted what was left of it to the Akron Art Museum. And I think it was on Saturdays they'd have performances. And so I went to the performance and I took my guitar, and between their shows I played. And everybody in the audience were people that used to see me at the berth with Gary.
okay. So it comes back.
And then this odd thing happened that I never have gotten to the bottom of. At the end of the show, there was a side room, and the bass player at the time, his name was Greg Colbert, asked me to come into the side room, and the band was there without Gary. And he said, hey, you're really good. Why don't you show up at a rehearsal and and watch our band play? Why don't you show up? It'd be great. Maybe you could sit in or something. And I said, well, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that. And I never really talked to Gary. I figured he was in the bathroom or something. I didn't fucking know. So I showed up. I drove all the way from where I lived in Silver Lake, Ohio. And I drove to Wadsworth, to this place, and I went down in the basement. And I was sitting there, and the band was kind of piddling around. And I said, where's Gary? And he goes, well, Gary quit tonight.
So they're like, we need someone now. Can you
And
do it without saying it?
he said he quit. He was moving to Kent.
Huh.
So he said, so we jammed a while, and then, they needed somebody to front the band, and I could sing, and I could play harmonica, and I played slide. I didn't have an electric guitar.
Right.
I had a guitar with a pickup in it, but it certainly wasn't an electric guitar. So I fronted the band and put the band together, and I started mainly playing harmonica.
Okay.
And they didn't, I knew after, this gets so fucking complicated. I mean, okay, so I knew I had been listening to the blues because I found the blues fascinating mainly because the guitar playing was like the Rubik's Cube. These African-American guitar players like Lightning Hopkins and these people, and Blind Lemon Jefferson and Robert Johnson and all these people, they were playing the guitar in such a way that I could not understand. There was no way I could fathom what they were doing. It was impossible.
Well, they're doing like 6 things at once. You got the bass line going, the slide guitar going, they're singing, like Delta
and
blues.
Singing.
Right.
Let's not forget singing.
Yeah.
They were singing while they were doing it. And I became obsessed with it. How do they do this? I want to know.
Right.
How? When I was in the service, in the Navy, I was stationed at Great Lakes, which is it's about an hour from Chicago.
Okay.
And I started going into Chicago when I could get away, and I started going to the record stores because Chess Records was in Chicago. So I collected the entire Chuck Berry, all the recordings he did on Chess. I started collecting everyone that I liked that was on Chess, and you could find the entire collection in record stores. Anyone you walked into, they were all loaded with Chess Records. You can find anything. And I also found some very rare albums, like Freddie King's Sings.
Whoa.
Freddie King was popular as a guitar instrumentalist. Right. He did not sing at the time. And here I found this record. I found all these wonderful things, and I walked into a place one afternoon called the Jazz Record Mart. And I was looking around, and this guy who's about 10 years older than me came over, and he, so what are you looking for? I'm looking in the blues, you know, and he goes, I'm blah, 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 blah. And he goes, well, I'm Bob Kester, and I own the store. And if you're interested in the blues, you know, why don't you come down here when you're in town? I close the store at 6 o'clock on Saturday night, and I will take you into Chicago downtown, into the South Side, and into the West Side, and take you to the club so you can hear these gentlemen play.
Nice. Whoa. Straight from the source.
And Bob Kester, you see, was the owner and producer for Delmark Records. He owned Delmark Records. He still does own Delmark. He's still alive. And he made some very landmark, famous blues records, one of which is probably one of the most famous modern blues records ever, and that was Junior Wells and Buddy Guy's Hoodoo Man Blues.
Yeah.
That was his record.
Wow.
We found them, put them together in the studio, and made that album with them. Well, anyway, I started going in there when I was, and he would go around with me. Sometimes it was me and these two guys I hung out with. Maybe there were some other people, but most of the time it was just me and him. And I made him and said, who do you want to see? And I named somebody. And he'd go, well, he's not in, he's on tour, but so-and-so's there. He's in town. I said, well, great, let's go see him.
That's so cool.
You know, I'd say, well, I may not be able, I'm elderly, so I may not be able to remember the names of everyone I saw, but one of my favorite shows is I wanted to see J.B. Hutto. You probably don't know who he is. And J.B. Hutto was a slide guitar player.
Okay.
And although I've been in arguments about it, I believe George Thorogood based his sound on J.B. Hutto.
That, like, dirty slide kind of mistake.
Dirty, yes, extremely. If you listen to J.B. Hutto and you listen to, what's his name?
Thorogood.
Yeah.
You can.
So anyway, I went to this club, and it was called the Jet Star Showdown.
Okay. Classy.
And it
sounds classy. That's all I said.
And it had a checkerboard linoleum floor that you could not see because it was orange and dark brown and filthy and used and worn out. And so I went in with it, and I'm standing there, and not much is going on. There's a bunch of people sitting around the bar, and there's guys playing pool, and I go, so where's the music in the back room? He goes, just be patient. Be patient. And out of the back room comes a man short in stature and portly playing a mandolin and singing. He just walked out of the back room and started singing into the room, playing mandolin and singing. And he was a very obscure player that not very many people knew about, that I was very familiar with. I loved his music. He played blues, mandolin, and sang, and his name was Johnny Young.
Okay.
So I'm standing 5 feet from this guy who I absolutely love. And he's standing there. I can feel his breath, okay? And then he was done, and the guy's playing pool, stopped playing pool, and took a piece of plywood and put it on top of the pool table and brought out a set of drums. The guy climbed up on the pool table, got behind the set of drums, and out came J.B. Hutto, and the show started. And I said, J.B. Hutto. That's one incident.
Wow. It's so... That's so amazing. Like, when you walk into a space and you see it for what it is, it's a bar, but at the same time, with a board here and walking through the hall, it becomes the show. It becomes everything. That being able to see the playing and witness the beauty come from out of something that's just plain is amazing. And have the tour guide of all tour guides for blues music. What an incredible experience in Chicago. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I could tell you a couple of Howlin' Wolf stories.
Yeah?
Or we could move on.
No, let's hear Howlin' Wolf.
Okay. Of course, I loved Howlin' Wolf. His music was really personal. He was not playing. He did some shuffles, but he did a lot of other things. His guitar player,
Hubert Sutherland.
yeah. If you listen to Hubert Sumlin's guitar player, his guitar playing on the famous songs, it's cyclical.
Yeah.
It goes around in a circle. You know, that kind of thing. And it was just a lick.
Yeah.
No chord changes.
Right.
Which is all very rural. There's no chord changes. It's rural.
Yeah.
But they made it electric, and of course Wolf played the same way. And that's what. But so that makes that gives his music this sort of deep, primitive, not primitive. What is the word? Primal thing. A lot of the other blues didn't. The other blues was more stylistic. Now I'm not degrading the other style of blues. I'm pointing out to you the difference musically. So I had an opportunity. I said, where is Howlin' Wolf playing? And he said, I can't go with you, but Howlin' Wolf is playing at his home club this weekend. It's called the Key Largo. So I took me and my two buddies, and we went to the Key Largo Club. And the Key Largo Club was a long bar, and then at the end of the long room there was a door, and then it opened up into this rather large club. There was an elevator there with tables and this big stage, and Howlin' Wolf was fucking playing. And there he was. Yeah. And so we listened to the show, and it was remarkable. Then it was time to leave. And of course, back then I smoked a whole lot of reefer back then, and so I was very high, of course, and drinking, and sort of in another place.
Yeah.
And my battery's going dead. Did I lose you?
Nope, I'm here. Was it?
So we walked out of the place, and we were going to see a movie called Juliet of the Spirits by Federico Fellini, which I wanted to see very badly because at the time it was a breakthrough because it was in color. Mm. And most of the Fellini films I had seen were in black and white. I was really interested in seeing it. I wanted to see it very badly. And we walked out of the club, and I had enough money left in my pocket to pay to get into the movie. And we were heading out, and we were very excited. And they got a little ahead of me, and I was standing by, kind of walking up the sidewalk by myself. And these 5 little boys came up to me, and they asked me if I had a cigarette. So I reached inside the inside pocket of my father's Air Force leather jacket, which I wore, because his name was the same as mine, and I pulled out my Camels and I gave him a cigarette. But by the time I had done that, they dissolved, and there was a voice behind me, and he said, "Turn around." I turned around, and the guy put a gun under my rib cage. And I looked down, and it was like a homemade type zip gun.
Fuck.
And he said, "You better give me what you got. If you don't give me what you got, I'm going to let this off." And I looked at him and I said, "Well, you know, I only got a buck here. After that, all I got is change. I don't have a lot of money, and I wanted to see this movie called Juliet of the Spirits. My guys would pay for your admission. Why don't you come along?" And he put the gun under my gut, and he said, "If you don't give me your money, I'm going to shoot you." And I said, "Don't you?" He said, "If you don't give me your money, I'm going to shoot you. Don't you think I would shoot you? Don't you think I'll shoot you? You think I'm fucking around? You think I won't shoot you?" And I said, "Oh, no, I think you'll shoot me. Yeah. I think you're man enough to shoot me. And I think you're courageous enough to shoot me. I think you would shoot me, but this is a great movie, and you really ought to come along. You're welcome to come along if you want."
Fuck. What?
And he pushed back from me and looked into my eyes, and he said, "You're fucking crazy. You're a crazy fucker. And he turned around and walked away. And the little children that were with him followed him, reappeared like gypsies.
Right.
And they walked away up the street. And the whole time all of this happened, there was an older man, well-dressed older man with a hat on, standing in a doorway and watched the entire thing happen. And that incident is the story behind the song Thief.
Okay.
On the Jimmy Bell record.
Right.
That's where I based that story, the song on that story.
Fuck.
The other Howling Wolf story is, this is also good, is I went to a place called the L&A Lounge to see one of my favorites. His name was Magic Sam.
Okay, nice.
He was on Delmar.
Yeah.
And I went to see him and talk to him and everything, and he was such a wonderful guy. He said, "Why don't you come and see me? If I can remember, I'm playing at God damn it, this huge theater in Chicago. I can't think of the name of it. Big, giant theater, dance hall, back in the 30s type place.
Yeah.
I saw Jefferson Airplane there. He says, but I'm playing there with Howlin' Wolf on Friday night or Thursday night. Why don't you come down?" And so I walked in.
Nice.
Something ballroom, not the, I can't think, I keep thinking the Agora ballroom, but
it's a little closer.
It's something like that. It's not Agora. It's, anyway. So, okay, this is a great story. Check this out. So I go in this big, empty fucking ballroom, and it had a balcony. It was round, and it had a balcony that went all the way around the second floor, full of loges and seating. The dance floor was immense. It was like an oval, circular type thing. It had loges on the side so that people could have their own private get-togethers and go out and step on the floor and dance. The Aragon Ballroom.
Okay.
So, but there was no one in this place. The whole fucking place was empty. And it was like, and I was so fucking high, man. I mean, I just had a passion. And I'm walking, and I walk into this immense, empty theater.
Yeah.
That was from the 30s for like ballroom dancing and big bands. And there's this dance floor. And I'm walking across this dance floor. And I'm walking and walking and walking and walking. And I looked across at the stage, and there were some people around the stage watching a band play. And there probably was about 100 people there, maybe. Mm-hmm. And the band was playing, and I'm getting closer, and pretty soon I hear da 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 da.
Okay.
Da 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 da. That's called Caravan.
Right.
And I went, they're playing fucking Caravan. What kind of a show is this? That feels like Las Vegas.
Right.
What are they doing playing Caravan? And I walked up by the time I got to now I'm up at the stage. And I'm looking at these guys, right? And they're older than me, quite a bit older than me. And they're dressed up, and there's a stand-up bass. The guy's got a big jazz box guitar, and, there's another guitar player. And at the end, the guy comes up, and he says, give a big round of applause to my son who played the drum solo on Caravan. And that was what the other thing was funny. I'm going, oh, this is fucking Caravan. This is Las Vegas. There's going to be a drum solo. And I'm coming close to the stage, and wham, there was a drum solo. Now I'm at the stage. Now I'm looking at these guys, and he goes, give my son a big hand for his drum solo on Caravan. And I'm looking at this guy. And he's charismatic, and he looks kind of familiar to me. Who the fuck is this? And he goes, now we'll do something you're probably a little more familiar with. And he went, damn, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, rock. 4, it was fucking Bill Haley.
No shit.
No shit.
That's crazy.
It was Bill Haley. And I'm standing there watching Bill Haley play Rock Around the Clock, and the fucking bass player is riding his bass like a horse in the whole fucking thing, man. I saw the whole fucking thing.
That's insane.
All right.
That guitar solo, that guitar work
When
in
they
that
were
song.
done,
Yeah.
when they were done, I went in the bathroom to take a piss. Okay, and I'm standing there pissing, and in comes Howlin' Wolf.
No shit. Okay.
And he's taking a piss, and he's about 2 urinals away from me. And he's pissing, and I'm pissing, and we're both pissing. I was there earlier, so I finished first. And as I walked by, I said so, and I knew that Howlin' Wolf hated his new record, which was called Electric Wolf.
Right.
I knew he hated it. So I said, Wolf, how do you like your new record?
Oh, shit.
And he goes, it sounds like cat shit. It sounds like cat shit. And then when I went out on stage, out on the floor and turned around, and then, Magic Sam came out and played, and then the Wolf came out and played, and then I went home.
That's amazing.
And then I went back to the base, and then I went back to my barracks and counted cockroaches.
That record, so it says on it that he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Yeah. That's so cool.
Right.
But it's
and when I went to the first, I got 3 piss stories. You want to hear them?
Yeah.
All right. The second one was I went to the Blues Festival, the first Ann Arbor Blues and Jazz Festival. And Wolf came on, and he was plastered. There's pictures of him. He was on a child's tricycle. He had his baseball hat on sideways, and he was completely plastered. And I went in the restroom, the porta-john, it wasn't like outdoor urinal, but it was big. And I'm in there pissing, and here comes Hubert Sumlin, and he's pissing. And this is after he got his teeth fixed, and he had these beautiful teeth, these gold teeth, and he's pissing, and I'm pissing, and he starts talking to me, and he said, fucking Wolf, and fucking Wolf this, and fucking Wolf drunk, fuck it. He keeps singing the same verse. I said, yeah, I know, I can tell you're pissed at him. And he goes, I feel like quitting and walking him. And then I went back and watched the rest of the show.
He was pissed.
The third piss story is, I was playing in this club that I played in for a long time down in Kent called the Kove.
Okay. Before it burned down?
And you can do I'm sure you've read about it.
Right.
Well, I'm I walk in the men's room, which at one time was a hole in the floor because someone tore the toilet off the floor. But the urinal was still on the wall. I walked into the urinal, and there's this little guy with long hair, and he's small. And I'm standing there pissing, and he's pissing, and he looks at my cock, and he goes, blimey, mate, you'll never do a fucking thing with that. And I just looked at him and left, and I said, we'll see.
That's crazy.
And it was the drummer from Pink Floyd.
No shit.
Because Pink Floyd was at the university.
Yeah.
That weekend, and they were probably done, so they came downtown, to check things out.
Well, that's where it was bumping. That's crazy.
That's my last piss story. What?
Your piss stories are awesome.
I think so. Anyway, to get back to what we were talking about, Gary had left the band.
Right. So full circle. And then you said blues was like a Rubik's Cube.
Huh?
You said blues was like a Rubik's Cube, and you were trying to figure it out.
Yes.
Can you...
the guitar playing.
Okay.
Not the music, the guitar playing. Guitar playing.
Gotcha. So through your time in Chicago, did the algorithm to figure out that cube start to make sense? Did the guitar playing from...
No, they did not play. They did not play that way.
Okay. Hubert Sumlin's kind of got some picking like that, some kind of delta.
No. The Chicago Blues is an ensemble.
Right. You get
that.
that.
The guitar players did not play classic finger picking blues. They didn't need to.
Right.
Okay. The only one you'll hear that really does is Muddy Waters.
Okay.
and Magic Sam somewhat. But if you go to see these guys, they were just playing raw shit.
Right.
You know, whatever cranked, they were cranking it.
Yeah.
You know, and they had a style of blues that was based on, well, you know, these things, and I speak, and they are suppositions. Okay, they are suppositions. They are not the truth. They are not historical. I'm not a musical historian. Okay, these are suppositions,
Right.
and it is my supposition comes from the word suppose.
Okay.
Okay, suppose
Right.
the guitar players worked with piano players, and the piano players played stride guitar or piano, stride piano, which
Right.
is sometimes called ragtime, but and it became stride, which means that you move your hand like this from one part of the chord to another, make a rhythm, and it's all based on 2/4 time. So the guitar players use their thumb to do the left hand, and that's why you see all these guitar styles. If the cleanest is Mississippi John Hurt, but they all played it. They all played this opposing thumb guitar style. And, you know, there's all kinds of different names for it and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it was in 2/4 time, like New Orleans music.
Right.
1 2 1 2 pop do pop do ba do da dee dee da do 1 2 1 2 1 2. All of a sudden that became 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 don't ba dee ba dee 1 2 3. Didn't have to constantly be doing this.
Right.
You know, and that became boogie woogie piano.
Right.
Dong, 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 you know, ba 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 ba, you know, boogie woogie, swing music, the swing era, all from 4/4 time. Well, if you listen to Robert Johnson, who's not the best example, but Jimmy Reed, any of them characters, they are playing the left-hand part on the guitar. You know, listen to any of them. I'm going to lose you.
Uh-oh.
Because my battery's going dead. I didn't think about that, but
Okay.
I can hook it back up and we'll try some more in a minute if it goes dead. So
Sounds
don't
good.
worry about it.
Right.
I'm having a good time.
Likewise.
I love to tell stories and I love to talk. So, you know, and so the opposing thumb guitar playing style began to fade because guys were playing boogie woogie on the guitar, and that's where the Chicago blues came from.
Gotcha.
Playing that, and Robert Johnson does it, but he also never quit playing on 2/4 time at the same time. So his style is very interesting because it's actually at times 6/4, which is a lot of music gobbledygook that I don't believe in. But he's playing 4/4 time and 2/4 time at the same time.
Weird.
Because what he's doing with his hands,
Right.
with his fingers, with his hand. And that's one of the things that he does that's so fascinating. And the other thing he does that a lot of people don't pick up on is he plays in triplets.
Hmm.
So you get this ya ba ba da da boom da there's da 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 back up and all that shit, okay, is piano playing.
Right. Right.
Skip James, who nobody fucking remembers anymore, was a huge influence on Robert Johnson. He wrote 44 blues, but he played the piano and the guitar. But he played the piano and the guitar, but his guitar style is a fucking mysterious.
Yeah.
It's absolutely mysterious. I never really figured. I know a guy who can play it, the shit that he plays.
Yeah.
I never sat down and figured it out. But his piano playing, you will hear Robert Johnson in the piano playing.
It's so interesting how the styles and how blues adapted to all these different instruments and it's melded together, right? And like how it moved up from the delta, and when a bigger band and ensemble was formed, how like the one man band thing slims off and it becomes those bassists are still there, and like It's just fascinating. It's fascinating how.
Well, the thing about Chicago is, man, this is a fucking city, and the swing era was going on. You're going to play that country shit.
Right. You
You're not
got
going to play that country shit. That's fucking country music. That's fucking hillbilly music. We don't do that. We do this shit.
Right.
And it's electric, and it's fucking incredible, and it's loud, and it's fucking edgy, and that's what it is. Because we live in the city, and it reflects the environment, you see.
Did you cross paths with Muddy?
No.
No?
Well, I saw him a few times, but no.
No. Okay, because him and Holland Wolf had it out for each other for a minute.
Oh, I don't know if any of that's fucking true, man. They were selling records.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
Why would Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters not like each other? What the fucking purpose of that?
Right.
I mean, they were not. They might have been competing
Right.
for record sales or some bullshit, but I think most of that stuff is bullshit. You don't want to get me started like the thing that I hate the most, that fucking makes me the most angry, is this thing about the Crossroads.
Right.
And Robert Johnson and all of that crap. It's such fucking garbage. Absolute total garbage. You know?
Yeah.
The guy, it's like Robert Johnson may have written songs with the devil in it. He may have been advertising himself that way. Why? So the girls will be a little bit afraid of him and make him more attractive. There was another country singer named Petey Wheatstraw.
Yeah.
Not very famous guy, the devil's son-in-law. There were a lot of songs about the devil and evil and all this shit. And it was all about getting people to come and see you play.
Right. Well,
and manhood, being a man, and all of that shit, man, plays into it. But the Crossroads, it's like they tell this story about Robert Johnson like it's the fucking truth. Well, let me give you another version, okay? Robert Johnson was probably a genius. He was not a stupid man, and he was not particularly uneducated. He could read. He could do a lot of things that nobody knows about, and they don't think about it like that because he was this old black guy from the South, blah, 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 racism, crap, bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, what if Robert Johnson either heard or read the story of Faust? Go look it up. The story of Faust I believe, was written in the early or late 1700s. And what's it about? It's about a guy who goes to the crossroads and sells his soul to the devil.
Okay, so making his own mythos, and like
and it is also a European and Southern myth. It has nothing to do with going to a fucking crossroads and meeting with the devil. It's total bullshit. And if you
I think
Robert Lockwood knew that.
Right.
He knew it was fucking bullshit.
And he didn't. Was it?
But there's still these fucking blogs and crap that I run over in blues magazines and shit. And they're all still talking about what a crock of shit.
Right.
Robert Johnson went to Son House and Howlin' Wolf and some of those players, and they said, "Hey, let me sit in." And they said, "You can't fucking play, kid."
Right.
Just like if you went on a construction site with your hammer and said, "I need a job. Can you let me work with you?" And they say, "You don't know what the fuck you're doing, kid. Go away until you learn a fucking trade. Don't come in and take advantage of the fact that we have got these people here seeing us and you want to come up and show everybody your dick. Get the fuck off the floor."
Right.
And he went away and he learned to play. He didn't go fucking to a crossroads and have the devil. He went and busted his ass. Studied and played and fucking worked and got fucking good. And he was really fucking smart. Really smart, and he wrote these marvelous songs and played this marvelous guitar style. He didn't buy it with his soul. What a crock of shit. They give nobody credit for what they did.
I agree.
Okay?
I agree with that 100%. It's interesting, the legend that gets print and what's the not appealing version.
You know what? I'm going to call you back.
Okay, are we done?
Can I do that?
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, ask me what you want to ask me.
I'm gonna finish that thought. It's interesting that So the pretty version, the unexciting tale that this guy wanted to go play, was told no, so he went and practiced a bunch, got really good, and then got notoriety from all his hard work. Compared
Well,
to
here's the fucking story, all right? I'm a construction worker. I was raised in the fucking union. My father sent me out to pour concrete when I was 17 years old.
Yeah.
And if you want to take part in a trade, you will take shit for it.
Right.
Oh, you're not going to make it, kid. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. You're costing us time. Hurry up.
Right.
And that's all those guys did to him. They let him know, don't fucking come in here and do this.
Yeah.
Know what the fuck you're doing. Come back here. Earn it.
Right.
That's what it's about. It's about, the real American values of hard work and labor and earning what you get.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay?
No, I agree with that.
Well, I gotta let go, and I will call you back.
Okay, cool. All right.
I'm good. So where were we? Okay, so anyway, this fucking guy quit. He quit the band, and I took over the band.
Right. So the Blues Fell This Morning inspired the name, right, of the Numbers Band?
Not exactly.
Okay. Well, let's dive into that. So I'm kind of fascinated by the idea that guitar playing is this thing to solve, right? And the numeric equivalence to like the Numbers Band, like, so where does that come from?
Well, okay. I read books. I was never good in school. I got fired from high school. And are you there?
Yep. Sorry, I'm listening.
I'm not. I can't look on the phone anymore.
Oh, okay, that's all good. Here, let me.
It sounds okay.
Yeah, no, it sounds okay.
All right. So anyway, so you were asking me. So one of the books I read was The Blues Fell This Morning by Paul Oliver. Paul Oliver was an English musicologist. He wrote a lot of books about African American music.
Right.
And this particular book is a book that focused on the themes of the blues. What were they writing about? And there's different chapters. There's chapters that are related to different things, like songs about floods, songs about sterno, gambling, all of that stuff.
Right.
Well, there's one chapter that's about gambling and the occult and that type of stuff. It's been a long time, so I'm kind of like guessing some of this stuff, but I believe that's what was in it was a focus on the occult, which is actually an exaggeration of what it actually was, and they weren't like sitting in circles worshiping a skull. They were just using charms and things like that to get people to fall in love with them and all this stuff. But the Vietnam War, when I put the band together, and the protests were at their height. I put the band together in the summer, I believe, of 1969. By the next year, 4 students were killed on Kent State campus.
Right. So
what it was like to live in Kent and in the surrounding area, it was very sort of on the level of someone who's in their 20s. It was like a fascist state. You had Nixon in the White House, which I always thought was great. The thing about Nixon was so interesting that there was an X in the middle of his name. And if you split his name, it said Nix on.
Okay.
And so that's, I was smoking a lot of pot, and it wasn't like QAnon, but it was out there.
Right.
But it was also accurate. That's just the way I think. So when Gary quit, And I said, well, I'll take over the band, and I'll front the band for you guys. But you're going to have to, I understand how this music is played, and I understand how to make it. So you're going to have to let me sort of work this. And if you don't, then it's not going to work out.
Right.
And so the first drummer quit within 3 rehearsals. He couldn't stand me. But in a while, he came back, and he was the original drummer in the band.
Okay.
So anyway, we're working in this guy's basement. But in the meantime, I'm thinking, well, when this band comes out, it's going to have a name. So I started thinking of names, and all these names, and they all sounded like local bands to me. So I was not happy with where I was going with this name thing.
Right.
And then I started getting deeper into it and was thinking a lot deeper about it. And I thought, well, what about numbers? No one's ever used numbers in a band before. It would be completely unique. No one's ever done it. Numbers for a name, which is Orwellian, and it's very Orwellian in this time in which I live.
Right.
And it will be a warning when they see the name of the band that things are moving in a direction that are not good. Okay? That's what made me decide to use numbers.
Gotcha. So, okay. No, because it makes
so
sense.
then I said, the next question you ask yourself is, what numbers?
Right.
And then I remembered the Blues Fell This Morning, and there was a chapter in the Blues Fell This Morning about the numbers racket, and how the numbers racket was based on, I believe it was, I haven't read this in a long time, the last 3 numbers of the Dow Jones. Okay, so whatever the last 3 numbers of the Dow Jones was, that was the winner. So these people that were betting on the numbers, all of these different people, they began to come up with theories as to how you could pick the winning number, and it sort of like played into numerology, right?
Right.
And out of that came this thing called a dream book.
Okay.
And a dream book is, if you dream about your mother-in-law, when you wake up in the morning, you look up mother-in-law in the dream book and you bet that number.
Gotcha. Oh, okay.
So you're getting a message from the beyond as to what your number ought to be. Okay?
Right.
Not that far-fetched.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's far-fetched. But
Yeah,
I mean, there's a rationale to it.
It's like the Freudian dream thing.
Or horses, or you could be, there's all kinds of, And so I'm looking through these numbers, and some of the numbers, people would bet the numbers, and they were popular for various reasons. And one of the numbers that I read was 3, 6, and 9, which was the 369th Infantry, which was the African American, I believe, African American infantry unit in World War I. It was the most highly decorated infantry unit in World War I, or something. Now I could be talking out of my ass a little bit, but you're asking me to remember something I read when I was 23 years old.
That's pretty good.
All right?
That's pretty good to remember this much.
And then one of the numbers was 15, 60, 75. Okay. And that number represented a phallus.
Okay.
So if you dreamed about a big dick, that was the number that you picked. So you're going to have to forgive me, all right? I was a little seedy when I was a young man, and I thought it was hilarious that in my private knowledge, when I saw the name of the band up there, it wouldn't be 15, 60, 75, it would be Big Dick, which would never be on a marquee anywhere. Maybe not even now. Maybe now. Certainly not in 1970.
Right.
So it was a big inside joke.
That's amazing. That's like, so I was talking with Chris Butler a couple weeks ago, Actually, I think it was in December, and he
Well, I wasn't finished, so you're
okay.
probably going to tell me what I was going to tell you.
No, keep going. I won't cut you off.
I'll finish this up. So the band was out. 1560-75 was the name of the band, and we were playing. And I'll cut the story short. When Terry Hynde came in the band, he started playing with us. Terry Hynde is a puzzle freak.
Yeah.
He loves puzzles. And he's also very versed in music theory. And one night after a show, he came up, he said, "You know what 1560-75 means?" And I kind of laughed. And I said, "What does it mean?" And he went, 15 into 15 is 1, 15 into 60 is 4, and 15 into 75 is 5. 1, 4, 5. That's a blues progression.
Okay.
But it's not only a blues progression, it is called the universal progression because it's used in Spanish music, country music. It's a 1, 4, 5 progression. And I was really kind of weirded out by that because all we were playing was blues.
Right.
So what's the connection between that and a big dick? I mean, it was like, it was like QAnon bullshit. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No, that's amazing.
Only it wasn't QAnon bullshit because it was true.
Right.
And still undefinable and still very, very mysterious.
That's amazing. It's crazy how like something that's just a joke can be so meaningful. How behind like a comedic thing is a deeper, more like a more thought out reason that you don't realize until someone points it out. So you, Terry, how do I want to put this? Janis Joplin brought Terry to you.
That's a bit out. That's outside.
That's outside.
No,
I read that you guys met at a Joplin concert, or you were there and someone.
Yeah, well, my girlfriend brought Terry to me.
Okay. So it wasn't.
Her name was Madeline Miller, and she went to high school. She went to high school with Chrissie Hynde and knew Terry.
Okay.
And we're sitting there watching Janis Joplin. She says, "You see that guy over there on the blanket?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "You ought to put him in her band. He's a really good saxophone player." So I got up and walked across over to the blanket. And I looked down at this guy I didn't know. I said, "Hey, man, you play the saxophone. Is that true?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I got a band. You want to play in it?" And he said, "Well," I said, "What are you doing? You want to play in a band with me and get to play your horse?" He said, "Yeah." And that was the end of it.
At that point, when did the repertoire start to build into like original tunes, or did you guys just start writing your own songs?
That's another story. But what were you going to ask me about Chris Butler?
Oh no, I was just going to point out. I was talking to him, and we were because I know he played with you guys for a bit, and I was asking him what the name, because I was asking him where the name came from, and like. He didn't say it meant big dick, but he was telling me Terry's breakdown of it, but he didn't have the math right. So he's like, somehow it equates to a 145, and I'm like, but that's amazing, and that's so fitting in a way. Of course, it has to be that deep and well thought out.
Well, it isn't.
I know, which is amazing.
No, I'm just the guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm just the guy who does that shit. I've done it my whole life. That's just shit. Just happens like that. It's just part of the way it is. But I mean, what were we talking about? Okay, so that was Chris Butler's thing. Okay, right. So we were talking about Terry.
So then when did?
You wanted to know when the original material started,
right? Because when you're doing your folk, like your acoustic solo act, the original tunes, like you said, you wrote the one that you met Gary with, had to start forming, right? And like, when did it adapt to fit the Numbers Band at this time? When did was it always originals?
That's a long story. So here, let me tell you what the story is.
All
okay. Right. I am a folk music singer. That's what I do. That's what I've always done. I am a part of the American folk music tradition. That's what I am. And in that tradition, you learn music and songs. But it is part of that tradition for you to make a contribution to the tradition. So you write your own songs.
Right.
That's like a responsibility. I see it as a responsibility. So I always wrote my own songs. The first songs I wrote I was in the Navy, and I wrote a song called Stolen Cadillac.
Mm.
And that was my first song, and I was always writing, but it was mainly Stolen Cadillac, a blues song, you know. It's based on Black Cadillac Blues, I think, by Lightning Hopkins.
Nice.
It's like a Lightning Hopkins song, really. But most of the songs and things that I did write were all, derivative of blues. And I was living with this woman at the time. Her name was Kanusha. Her nickname was, her American name was Constance, and she called herself Connie Red. Started bugging me and asking me when I was going to start writing my own music, because I had told her what I told her about folk music and so on and so forth. And she said, and she was an artist herself. She was a painter, and she said, she was sort of like in my shit about it.
Right.
When are you going to start doing something that belongs to you?
Right.
But at the time I had no confidence in myself at all, and it was very difficult and a big thing for me to think about writing something that was original. But the more I became obsessed with it, the more I got into it, the deeper I got into it, the more I realized that I should do that, and that it was proper for me to do that. I shouldn't be playing music from the African American community and living my life doing that, because it isn't my music. And I felt, even at the age of 22 or 23, that I really needed to make a contribution. That was my folk voice speaking to me. You need to make a contribution to this music. You need to do the effort. You need to put the work in. So I began to do it. And I began to think, well, not only am I going to write my own songs, I'm gonna fucking create a whole style of music that's completely unique, and it's going to be individually completely unique. And so I began to write music as well as lyrics that had to do with trying my hardest to find something that was unique, distinct. Not, you can do things that are unique, but I wanted it to be distinct, separate from everything else, and unique. So it was quite an undertaking, and that's where the original impetus for the new songs came from doing it.
Yeah. No easy feat with that level of responsibility you're putting on your shoulders to come up with not only original music but completely original arrangement and sound and a new. But anyway, so
well, I can tell you how it broke down.
Yeah.
Okay, I took Chuck Berry rhythms and reversed them. Do you know how to play the guitar? Do you play the guitar?
Yep.
All right, so you play a Chuck Berry rhythm. Do you know how to play a Chuck Berry rhythm?
Right, like.
Okay, so if you want to understand what I did, you take a Chuck Berry rhythm. You count the beat, and you start where we know how when you go up and you lift your finger up,
right,
to make the second part of the part,
right,
da, 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 that kind of thing.
Yep.
You start there and go backwards.
Okay.
You'll have to try it, and you'll figure it out. Well, I wrote songs where that was happening. That was the guitar part. It was backwards. And we put the snare beat on 1 and 3 rather than on 2 and 4. So the drummer that I was working with had to learn how to play the drums backwards.
That's almost like a funk thing when you're putting an emphasis on the 1.
Well, it's a long story. It's not too long, but I had to fire a drummer, and this guy that was a very close friend of mine was living in an apartment, and I'd known him since before he even had a band. We were very good friends, and I heard that he was an artist and a musician, and I heard he had a set of drums, so I called him on the phone. I said, "Hey, man, I just fired my drummer. We got about a week. Do you still have your drum kit?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, bring it down, and if you want, I'll hire you and put you in the band. He said, I don't know how to play the drums in public. I said, don't worry about that. Nobody's going to fucking know. Just don't stop. So he came down and brought his drums down and became the drummer in the band, and his name was Jerry Casale.
Right. Who ended up
So one night we were playing a song, and he did a fill, and he came out backwards and was playing the snare on the 1 and 3. And I'm listening to the 1 and 3, and when it started happening, the whole fucking room shifted. It was this huge thing. It was like there was an earthquake, because the whole shift of the focus of the entire music was different. And it was more earthen, and it had this strange thing about it. And he came up because, I'm really sorry I fucked up that. I said, no, I'm going to use that. And I've used it the rest of my life. A mistake.
Damn. That's the beauty of the mistake. It's either, if coincidence is a life whispering, a mistake would be life shouting, right? And like that's...
Well, the thing about this is this. My philosophy on all this bullshit, and I call it bullshit, is that you were born and raised in America. You went to American schools.
Right.
And they teach you the fear of error. That is what you were taught. That's the basic thing you learn, fear of error. And it interrupts your life for your entire life. Mm-hmm. But error, as it's defined by your school, is actually where life exists. So if you're afraid to make a mistake, you'll never be creative.
Right.
And that fear, and on whatever happened, whatever depth that affects you, affects how you create.
100%.
And 1 and 3 is not an error.
Right.
There's very few things in our lives that are mistakes and errors, like you're coloring outside the lines, you get an F, these kinds of things. I mean, shooting someone is an error.
Right.
Okay?
Definitely.
Driving on the wrong side of the highway is an error.
Right.
Okay? Writing a song and you're standing on stage and you play a chord, it's not an error. It's part of the performance. Because the performance is how you deal with that. The real performance is how do you deal with these things that you do, because you lose your concentration.
Yeah.
It's not an error. It's not a mistake. It's an opportunity.
Well said. Well said. And I agree 100%. I think a lot of, at least a lot of the kids I work with, you see a fear of being wrong, like a manic fear of being wrong occasionally, like until it becomes right. And so much of that mistake leads to life-changing things. And that's, I think, how you phrased that was really well said.
It's a negative thing, though. Remember,
right?
It's a negative thing. Teaching children about putting children in boxes is a mistake, a real mistake. Teaching them about boxes and having them understand boxes is fine.
Right.
But requiring them to be in the box is a mistake. They need to understand. It's like, I can't number the musicians and artists I've worked with that we'll be doing something together, and we're in collaboration, and I go, well, why don't you try this? Oh, I don't think that'll work. I said, we haven't done it yet. How do you fucking know?
There's only one way too, and that's
the only way to do it is to do it. That's the only way. And and if you approach it like it's going to be a mistake, you're not giving it any breathing room to be what it is. You don't even see it for what it is. And the 1 and 3 beat that Jerry Casale played changed the band.
Right.
With what he thought was a mistake. I just took it and went, this is fucking cool. I'm going to use it. And the musicians that I worked with berated me. It sounds like a choo-choo train. It sounds like Indians. The snare drum goes on 2 and 4. And I said, not anymore. Because I said it doesn't. And if you want to be in this band, you're going to fucking play it like that. Right. That's it. And that's why people hated me,
Well, to have a vision of something and to have a direction. Someone's always good to butt heads with someone who has a direction when they feel like they don't. But on aside from that, so I agree 100% with what you said. Like, I think that, but so I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought now. But so now that these tunes are like formed and you're taking these patterns and you're flipping them around and you're shifting beats and making your own, the Numbers Band's becoming its own unique blend of music. When do you guys start really shedding to that Bob Marley gig? Because that's when you guys recorded Jimmy Bell's Still in Town. And
it took about a good year or more to learn these songs and perfect them. And it wasn't just my guitar parts, it was the rhythms that the drums played and what the bass did. I had these things, every part had to be unique, and they all had to understand what I wanted.
Right.
And then I said, this is what I want, play it. And then you own it. Do not play what I'm telling you to play. You are the drummer. You are the bass player. But I listened to jazz, and so did Terry, and so did my brother, and so did Tim Maglione. So when it came to horn parts, I started putting horn parts together, and they sounded like shit, and they were stock, and I didn't fucking want them. So we came up with this thing where what we did, but we liked Sun Ra, and we liked Ornette Coleman, and we liked John Coltrane, and we were listening to, and I had been listening to that stuff almost as long as I had been listening. Well, not as long as I've been listening to blues, but I mean, from Miles Davis, and from the late '60s out, and especially in the '70s, I was listening to Ornette Coleman and all the free jazz and all this stuff. Pharoah Sanders and Terry and I were going to jazz clubs and listening to people, listening to Pharoah Sanders. So when we came to putting the horn parts together, what I came up with, what the idea was, is these guys were great improvisers. Even my brother, who could barely play, was a great improviser. Nothing stopped him.
Right.
Okay. So I'd say, I want a horn part here. And we'd play the music. We'd play like Animal Speaks.
Right. And
the music would be going along, we'd be singing, and I'd stop it. And I'd say, so when I say this line, out across the night skylights, I want a horn part to answer it. And they just looked at me, trying to figure out what the fuck to do. And what we ended up doing was, I said, okay, Terry, we're going to do it. This time you walk up to the mic and you play what you hear after I say this line. And he would play it. And it did what it did. And I said, okay, Tim, you do it. Okay, Jack, you do it. Okay? So that's three different men playing three different ideas at the end of a line.
Right.
And they were soloing in the music in the moment. And so their horn parts reflected what was happening around them. So then all of a sudden Tim would play something, or Terry would go ba.
Right.
And everyone would learn it.
Ah, okay.
We'd all look at each other and go, that was pretty cool, and everybody would nod their heads. Then they would learn it from him in unison. And then I would play the line, and they would respond as a section. And then, after everybody did that, they would work out harmonies within that line. And every line was forged in the same manner. Including whole tones and everything else.
Right.
And that's the way it was constructed. So when you listen to Animal Speaks, or you listen to I Game, or any of those songs, you name it, all of that shit was done in that manner. One line at a time, one horn part at a time, one horn at a time, one line at a time. And there were places where we would repeat the sectional, and there were things like that, but it was all built. Okay, so here's the story. I put the work in. They put the work in, motherfucker.
Right.
They put the work in, and they did this music with me, and we worked our asses off. and we did not fuck around, and we did not cop out, and we did not use I call them off the rack ideas.
Right.
And that's why that music sounds the way it does. And the funny thing is I thought, wow, people are going to like this music. But what I realized was it was too foreign and alien to me.
Was it because those horn sections, like the fact that that's a live record is insane because it's so tight. Like listening through it and working with a couple bands I've played with that have horn sections and seeing like just how much of a feat it is to organize a group like that and to have them improvise like this, and they almost wrote every lyric with you in a weird way, like the horn response to it. But like,
right.
So that makes it as much as your song is their song, at least when you have this like ensemble mentality way. So when you guys played, when you opened for Bob Marley, how did the crowd react to that? Because that is a whole different vibe, right?
Well, okay, I'll put it to you this way. What if you went to a Mexican restaurant, you looked at the menu and you ordered your food, and they brought out Chinese food?
Right. Okay.
That's what it was.
Wow.
They didn't know what the fuck we were doing.
Right.
They had no fucking idea. Even, the only people who knew what we were doing were the people that knew who we were.
Right.
And, that album was recorded 3 times. That was the 3rd time. That was the last time.
Okay. What was the other 2? Was it the same show? Different nights?
Different nights. One night we played, and we went up and we were listening to the playback, and I said, how many channels did they use? And they said, well, this is stereo. And you got to remember now, well, you're going to wear me out. I'm going to wear myself out. But this is the Agora, man. They were the kings of Cleveland.
Right.
The Agora. This is when David Bowie was playing at the fucking Agora.
Right.
WMMS radio was making and breaking stars. It was fucking Hollywood.
Yeah.
And the Agora, because my manager was Jim Mock, who booked the Agora, talked Hank LeConte into allowing this whacked out band from Kent to come in and record a live album, because Jim Mock thought we were going to be the next big thing, you see, because we were so bizarre. Right. He smoked a lot of pot too, see. So we're standing in the studio, and they're playing this thing back for me. And I said, so how many channels did you record? And they said, oh, this is stereo. And I said, so this is it? We can't mix this? And they said, yeah. I said, no, we're done. No, I won't accept that.
Right.
So I looked at these people who were these big shots, and I said, no, not interested. Walked out.
Right.
With the band. And they couldn't fucking believe it. And Jim Mock panicked. He comes to me. He goes, why did you do that? I said, because we're going to mix this. We're going to have 16 tracks like everybody fucking else.
Right.
And it wasn't arrogant. It was, I wanted the best for my people.
Right. Well, and all that work put into it to just get it, not a full mix of it, or not be able to get a full mix of it.
So we went, and they gave us another show. They agreed, and they gave us another show. But then my bass player ended up in the hospital. And they called me on the phone. They had this show. It was like sold out, and they were very excited about it. And I had to cancel the show. And they said, we got a bass player who can play. I said, I'm not playing without my bass player.
Right.
This bass player isn't going to walk up on stage and play this fucking music. He won't know what he's doing.
Right.
And they thought I was being arrogant. But what I was being was truthful.
Right.
So they gave us the third show. The third show is, all right, this is it. You get 16 tracks, you walk out, you play for 50 minutes for Bob Marley's audience, and that's your last chance. This is it.
Wow.
And that's how it went down.
That's amazing. Like, to be able to pull it off like that.
Well, I mean, that's the way we sounded every night. I have proof. That kind of intensity, we did it every time we hit the stage. Every time. And I have proof, because I have other recordings of those songs that were done at different times that are exactly the same. You can't barely tell them apart.
Well, that just that just shows how much effort was put into it. The fact that that could have been a given night, any of those songs, and they've sounded sounded as tight as they did. It just shows miles
Well,
of.
the people I work with, including Chris and everybody else, were passionate musicians, intelligent, talented people. And I've been very blessed by that. And it was also, like handling nitroglycerin, because, of how people were. But them fucking guys committed themselves to this music, and I've had people commit themselves to my music for 50 years. You'd have to ask them. But I think there's something I have been told by my musicians that work with me, that when they look back at their time in the band, it was the only time in their lives they ever played any kind of music like that. Where that kind of intensity level, that kind of commitment, and the band's still like that.
Yeah. Well, that's why you guys have endured for this long. That's why, success is.
Hey, there was a plug.
There was a plug. I didn't even mean to plug
I caught
it
you.
that.
I caught you.
But so let's kind of get caught up to that. So after the live record, there was a studio record, the self-titled record, which I had trouble finding, but that record kicks. That record's awesome.
There was two studio records.
Right.
One was called number. The second record was called 2.
Okay.
And it had some really great songs on it.
Right.
The last studio record we did was called Among the Wandering, which I sell. The second record is unavailable. I may put it out eventually as a CD.
Okay.
And this guy I know that does vinyl may put it out. But.
Okay. The Smogvale dudes? They've been putting
No, I don't work with Smogvale. I work with Exit Stencil.
Gotcha. I just know they do a bunch of Cleveland stuff.
They do.
But yeah, there's on the 2. There's this. I couldn't find like a track list for it, but there's this. I think it might have been called spiraling down, and it's got like a reggae feel.
Spinning around.
And
right.
How you leveled, like, it was really cool because listening to everything in a live context, right, and hearing how tight it is live, to hear the studio tricks you can do and like add vocal harmony, was really fucking cool. And like it goes through to the next record, but that tune in particular stuck out. I was like, it's amazing to see like the evolution.
I hate the fucking harmonies on this.
You do? Wow.
I know people do. People like them, but no, that was the bass player. I wanted harmonies. I just wanted to sing with my brother and I, but he had an idea that he wanted to do, so we all did it, and I went along with it. That was fine. But it sounds like war.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. But I don't know. It's still, to me, it sounds like you
It's
guys.
still, I don't like it because it sounds like fucking monks.
Right.
That's why I don't like it.
Oh, like the.
But I mean,
yeah.
But I mean, whatever. I'm glad you like it.
And there was another tune on there, Summer
Fever. That's probably one of the best songs I've ever written.
And the horns, how the horns accent the chord changes that come in. That was.
No, I don't know, but there's a horn on it. I think you're thinking of something else.
What is it? Either. Oh, a side note.
There's Nobody's John is on that record. That's a great song.
Right. It holds up. So I hope you do put it out eventually. Put it out again.
It's just one more thing. We still do Nobody's John. You should hear it now.
What was it?
It's frightening.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah, man.
That's sick.
There's a version of Nobody's John on Inward City. Are you familiar with that?
Mm-mm.
We have other CDs. We have a CD called Hotwire.
Okay.
We have a CD called Inward City. I'll send them to me. Send me your address.
All right. Well, dude, like I read about those, but I wasn't able to find them. So.
Well, they're on that fucking website. What do you mean?
Was it when I clicked?
You can buy them off the website. Yeah, I caught your ass.
No,
You didn't look very hard.
I did. Was it when you go to the music? It says like under construction. I don't know. It doesn't give you the thing.
Oh, the new website.
Right,
Well,
right.
maybe. Oh, well, that could be. I'm sorry. I apologize. It may not be there yet, but you can buy all that shit.
Okay. What was it?
It may not be functioning yet because my wonderful wife rebuilt that website, and it's incredible. But
Right.
you know, this COVID thing just fucked everything all up.
Was it? Have you? I saw you guys did a live thing New Year's. That might have been 2019 even. But did you guys? I mean,
We did some live streams from Julie's Music Room in Akron.
Okay.
And we did one for the art museum, but it was from Julie's Music Room in Akron.
Was it just the band, no crowd type deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, they were not something I cared for at all.
That's weird.
But I did it for her, for Jill Madden, and she's been really excellent and wonderful to the band, and you know, it was very alienating. And the last one we did, though, I started getting into it. I kind of took a quiz show approach. It's like, you know, I don't care about being on television. I don't care about that shit. I care about the inner relation of the band in the moment when we're playing music, and how the audience responds, and how that works together, and how it becomes one thing. That's all I care about.
Well, that's the whole thing. That's the reason we go to that shit. You know what I mean? For that connection.
Yeah. Right. Well, it ain't happening in a live stream.
Well, definitely not. Live streams but a side note, so after those two records, the Golden Palanitos, when did you start working with them?
Yes, so the Golden Palominos is Anton Fear.
Right.
Anton Fear worked with David Thomas in Cleveland. He replaced Scott Krause, I believe, as the drummer.
Right.
And so it all relates to David Thomas. Anton moved to New York and worked bands in New York. I can't remember the first one. I would say the Pixies, but that's wrong. Something like that.
Okay.
And then he worked with Lounge Lizards, who with a really great horn player. And then he put together Golden Palominos, which was sort of a concept thing. And I got a call from him. I don't know why. Well, he used to come see the band when they lived in Cleveland and liked what I did. So he wanted to do Animal Speaks on one of his records, and he wanted John Lydon to sing it. So he called me on the phone and wanted to know if I would let him do it. Of course, I would. And
yeah.
And because by then we didn't even do the song anymore. Most of the stuff on Jimmy Bell the audience didn't like it that much.
That's okay. Well, that's crazy to think. But anyway, so.
But Jimmy Bell was the song. They didn't like Animal Speaks. They didn't like iGame. It was too fucking weird. And so I kind of just, by the 80s, I didn't play him anymore. And then all of a sudden, these people were coming up to me going, God, Animal Speaks is amazing, and blah, 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 all because these guys in New York put it on a record, blah, blah, blah. It's all about show business, you know, so. Yeah. But anyway, then after Lydon did that, then he did it with Jack Bruce, and they put out an EP. And then he played in Cleveland, and my band opened. And the first time I ever heard anybody do any of my songs that I didn't play them myself, first time I heard anyone ever do one of my songs was Jack Bruce singing Animal Speaks.
That's crazy. That's so
which
cool.
Which was an interesting moment.
Right.
And then this relationship between Anton and I developed, and, you know, and so there you have it.
Gotcha. So that's, you know, it's interesting because you had Johnny Rotten, right? And then Jack Bruce, you have like this movement of this rock blues, right? Cream. And then you got this punk rock. And like, I know the Numbers Band's kind of been thrown in this weird mix with like being called a bunch of different types of music with like blues music and then jazz music and punk music. And it's interesting that the first group to cover your music is like kind of like a forerunner in both those realms, like punk and blues rock.
Right.
Did let's talk about David Thomas a little bit, because that kind of
Right.
like that scene was taken off while you guys were still like taking off as well.
We were already there and
Right.
very well established in the culture before new wave and punk rock. That music knocked us off the chart. We were the old men who played the blues. But that didn't keep the musicians who played the music from it liking us. And I remember getting off the stage and this sort of fast-talking guy in a big Apple hat. It was back then in the 70s. It was Apple hats back then were actually like twice as big as they should have been. So they were really big. And this guy was this loudmouth, fast-talking guy. I liked him, though. That never bothered me. But he says, I want you to meet somebody. You got to meet somebody. You got to follow me. You got to meet somebody. Like, this guy's really wonderful. You really got to, he wants to meet you. So I follow him. I walk over to this giant with curly hair sticking out of his head. And the guy introduces me to Crocus Behemoth. And that's when I met David Thomas. Now, David Thomas came down to see the band and admired the band. But the real inroad into David Thomas was Tony Mamone, who was his bass player. And we became very close friends and still are.
And I find it, after talking with David, I think this probably came from seeing you work your band, but when he has a vision, he sticks to it, and there's like this work ethic that is driven through Peru that seems very familiar, or at least it's coming from a source that you guys sound like you had with the Numbers Band.
Yeah. Oh, that very well could be.
But so let's after that, working with those guys, you went on tour with them, right? Not Peru, but Golden Palominos.
We went on tour with Peru, but not as a band.
Okay.
My brother and I worked with David in
the festival in England?
Mirrorman, it was called.
Oh, okay. Wow.
We toured England and played the Queen Elizabeth Hall, and we played the Royal Festival Hall. And my band went and played the Royal Festival Hall, which is the band played in the Royal Festival Hall, which is like Lincoln Center in London.
Cool.
They flew us all the way to London and kept us in the hotels for 6 days to play 50 minutes on a stage in the Royal Festival Hall. And it was for a farewell show for the guy who had booked the Royal Festival Hall. And he was leaving, and he wanted to do a show of his favorite bands, and David was playing, so we were invited. And the guy from MC5 played. A lot of people played. It was called...
was it Wayne Kramer?
I don't know. Okay. I don't know anything about him.
Gotcha.
I met the guy. I don't know him. I don't know who they are. The only thing that was interesting about MC5 is right after I named the band, MC5 came out and they had a number in their name.
Right. Okay.
Which was interesting, but that's nothing like what I did. But it was just interesting.
It's in the numeric thing coming through in the ether.
Well, it was just like it's like like there was the Dave Clark 5 too. Remember them?
Yeah.
MC5, Dave Clark 5. Whatever the fuck.
Yeah. Well,
the 4 freshmen. How about them? The 4 freshmen. There's a number in their name too.
Right. It isn't all numbers, and it doesn't mean big dick. So.
Well, it's just interesting. It's just I don't fucking care. I mean, one way or the other. Yeah. I think MC5 was a remarkable organization, and their music was really amazing music.
Did you ever cross paths with Peter Loeffner?
I know Peter very well. I toured with him when we did the Golden Palominos tour. He stood next to me for every show.
No way. Wow. That guy had talent. He put there's this really cool acoustic compilation of his music. And I just read this book by Adele Bertay on,
Uh-huh.
have you read that?
No.
Oh, it's called Peter and the Wolves, and it's like her
Oh.
memoirs of like living with Peter and making music with
Oh,
Peter.
how nice. Wow. No, Peter is a wonderful man, and he's having some problems, and he kind of disappeared out of my life, and I'm sad about it. But I did go see him when I was in England, and I still I have contact with Sid Straw, who was the female vocalist. But no, I ripped Peter. I used one of Peter's. We were talking one time. It's in Red Stick on the Endure record.
Right.
If you listen to Red Stick, there's a line where I say a pint of the bumpy. A pint of the bumpy,
Right.
and a pack of what I am.
Uh,
And that was something that poetry that Peter gave me that was common poetry, beat poetry. So a beatnik would walk into a liquor store and say, "Give me a pint of the bumpy and a pack of what I am." So it's like hip talk, English hip talk.
that
He didn't write it; it was a vernacular.
Right, right. But it came
And
because
I never forgot it, and I put it in the song, and I give him in my lyric book. I attribute it to him. You know.
beautiful. That the Endure's a great record, man. I liked hearing some of the was it the acoustic versions from a Jackleg full band on this record.
Right.
Was
Right.
was that kind of the goal? Was to hear
No,
some no?
I don't have. No,
Okay.
no, no. The songs I write by myself, and then I bring them to the band. It's just a process.
Okay.
Some of the songs I don't think I could probably take any one of those songs off of Jackleg and do it with the band. Some are going to work better than others. I attempted to do two others that I don't think that I think they were. I kind of gave up on them. One of them was um, Big Paradise, and the other one was the ballad.
Okay.
I can't recall the name of it right now. And I did do a version of that was actually quite good. Big Paradise, I made an error, and I tried to get the band to play it
Yeah.
a little bit more like, too much like my version on the LP, and that was a mistake. And then I never got back to it because I wrote other songs, and I probably never will.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it holds up on Jackleg. It's cool. It's cool hearing after listening to the Numbers Band, then hearing your solo record, that like that process of, and then the new record, hearing the process of how it goes from you to the band.
Yeah, well, that's the way I've always done it. I mean,
Yeah, that's it's really cool. I don't like. I've been trying to personally pick brains of songwriters for years now, and it's one of those things that everyone has a different process.
well, there's
for.
the difference between me and a lot of other people is I am not a singer-songwriter. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I am a composer.
Mm.
When I come to the band, I know what the song will be.
Right.
And then that is where we start. That is the gate that we open. And then everyone goes through that gate with an understanding of what I'm going to require, and then they make their own contribution to the idea.
Yeah. Okay. So then.
And
Okay.
sometimes within the process of learning the song, my idea is replaced by a better idea. That is the way it should be done.
Right.
And I think the one song that I'm the most proud of on that is Blue Collar.
Yeah, that's a good song.
I think that the introduction and the actual song itself and the outro, they're amazing. I'd never, and the funny thing was, David, is when I walked in the studio to hear the playback, I had never heard Blue Collar before.
Oh, so you were hearing that's so was it
All
recorded?
the songs, stop and think about it. Stop and think about it. Every song on that record I had never heard before, except for my brother's because he plays them.
Mm,
I didn't know what they sounded like.
right.
I mean, I had an idea, but when you're playing something, it's not the same as when you listen to it. And I never listen to anything unless I have to.
Right.
Now I'm listening to things because they're old, and I don't have the same emotional.
Attachment, like fresh.
Well, it's just I need distance
Mm,
in order, you know.
yeah. No, it makes sense. So was it recording wise? It was all pieced apart, right? And then was it
No,
no?
I would never do that.
Okay.
That was the whole stipulation when we walked in the fucking studio. See,
Right.
go ahead. Will you ask me a
No, I was
question?
just with everything how it is now, right?
I don't do that. I hated it. I fucking
Right.
hated it. I hated every record I ever made, except for Jimmy Bell. I don't like the process. It doesn't make any fucking sense to me. You know, if you're a studio band, it would make sense. If you're a
Right.
live band, why would you go in a studio and not play?
Yeah, not show the thing you've done the way you've
So
done it.
I will give you my lecture. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Buckled in. Let's hear it.
All right. So, uh, these two guys came over. One of them was a musician, and we were going to do a show and feature this one guy. So we were having a discussion, and they told me that this guy was getting ready to open a recording studio in Kent, a really up to date studio.
Right.
And so came around. We're going to go in the studio, and the guy that I was working with was encouraging me, and I began to see the potential that the 50-year anniversary was coming up, and we could very possibly have a studio album out.
Right.
But the stipulation was going to be we were going to record live in the studio. My definition of what live in the studio is, I've been told we were doing live in the studio several times. It is not live in the studio. And I had long discussions with my bass player and the guy who was going to produce this record, who owned the studio, what I wanted. And the band was skeptical. They didn't think it would work. And I didn't blame them. I just said, we're going to do it this way, and we're going to record it this way. And if we spend a day in there and it's obvious that it's not going to work, you know, I'm not going to be stiff-necked about this. We'll make some compromises and make some changes and do what we need to do to get the record done. This is not about what I want. This is about what I feel needs to be done to capture the band. Because every one of these fuckers I've ever worked with has said, oh, numbers, oh, Jimmy Bell this, Jimmy Bell that. Oh, Jimmy Bell. I'm so sick of hearing about it. It's like the band stopped after Jimmy Bell. But what is Jimmy Bell? We walked out on stage, they put mics up, we played, and we walked off the stage. That is the record.
Right.
There were no overdubs. There was nothing. The mistakes and the errors and all the things that are in that record are in the record. That's it. It is a record of what we did. It's a performance. Mm. So I said, we're going to come in, we're going to set up, and we're going to play. And we're going to record it. Okay, there can be no overdubs, no isolation booth. I'm not wearing earphones. You know, I'm not doing any of this shit. I don't wear earphones when I play. Why would I wear earphones when I'm playing in a studio? I don't wear earphones. And so they started making these, say, sure, yeah, we can do that. And then when we came to the day, and we had a big meeting with the whole band, and everybody was in agreement, but the day of the studio, when we first went in there, there's a monitor at my feet. There's a baffle to my left. Mm. I said, these things are not going to be here. I said, if I need a monitor, I will let you know. I don't want a baffle. I can't see my brother. The only person that wore earphones was the drummer, because he couldn't hear the music
Right.
over his instrument because he sits behind it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we played in an open studio and sang into dead mics.
Mm.
I said, why would I want to wear earphones when I sing?
Right. It's a weird.
I said, I don't do that. I'm not going to learn how to do this. Fuck you. I'm not doing it. And, and then within a short time, everybody realized, it was working.
Right.
Because the volume of the band in the room had to come down to hear me singing.
So it brought it back to the live setting anyway. Mm.
Yes, and
Right.
More so because there was no monitors.
Right. So they're actually listening.
They had to listen to me, and they had to listen to my brother. And we recorded like 8 versions of the song, and then picked the one we wanted and edited and borrowed from other versions, and we did all this editing.
Right.
It was the editing. And what I realized after it was all over is this fucking studio technique has nothing to do with the artist. It has everything to do with the engineer. Right. Make life easy for the engineer.
Well, so it's the sound guy. It's the sound guy of all sound guys at that point. You know what I mean?
They don't want bleed.
Right.
They don't want all this. They don't want this. They don't want that. You have to wear earphones. And it's like, the last time I was in the studio, they were having me sing into this music and complaining that I wasn't singing it the same way.
Mm. Well, it's a different
You need to sing it the same way. I said, I never sing anything the same way. I'm not playing my guitar. Oh, you can play your guitar.
Yeah, that's weird.
We're just not going to plug it in and you're not going to be able to hear it.
Well, that's the point.
And I'm saying, well, I don't need, I'm not jacking off.
Yeah.
I mean, I played the guitar and my voice and what I do physically are all the same thing.
Lines up, yeah.
And it's not this old bullshit cliche about, oh, he can make this guitar sound like a voice. It's the interplay between the two things.
Right.
And the improvisation that happens when these two things are happening at the same time and one person is doing it. I never sing the same song twice the same way.
Yeah.
And so I'm in the fucking studio and I'm going, oh, okay, let's do this. So I start singing the song, right?
Right.
And then the change comes and I sing the line. And then the line comes later. Because I didn't sing it the same way. So then I got to go, blah, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, sing the line.
Yeah.
And that's not a performance, that's karaoke.
Right. Well, it's taken away from it. It's really interesting that everyone admires the live bit of it, but doesn't want to do it live. So that's an interesting conundrum.
What is it now? Say that again.
It's weird that everyone admires the live record, but when it comes time to work with you guys, they don't really want to do it live.
That's because it's too much work.
Right.
And we're back to our discussion earlier. No one wants any mistakes on their record.
Right.
It's evil. 2 and 2 is not 6.
Right. Well,
and on we go back to everybody. See, the funny thing about the music industry is they all consider themselves, or so many consider themselves, liberal because they're in the entertainment business, and they're all very, very conservative. Musicians, as a whole, are very conservative. When a musician gets in the studio, he wants it to be perfect.
Right.
And he'll play that fucking thing 120 times. Oh, I'm not sure. There was a little bit of a buzz on that B flat.
Right.
So I want to do it. Now, you just punch me in for that B flat because I don't want that little buzz there.
Right.
And on and on and on it goes. What does that have to do with the performance?
It alters it. It shifts it to
it's not a performance.
Right.
It's fake.
Yeah.
And it feels fake to me.
It's interesting how like technology in a way is really great that you can go in there and punch that in and make that work and layer 90 things on an orchestra on a track, but it also takes away from the authenticity of it and takes away from, like how you're saying, the actual performance, which is what you're
Well,
listening
it
to.
depends. Well, let me interrupt you. It isn't. I'm not saying my way is better,
Right.
and I'm not saying that way is incorrect. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. What I do know is that I play live. Okay.
Right.
If you were down in the Amazon jungle and you were high on some kind of fucking shit they were drinking, and these fucking musicians came out from behind one of the places or something and came to the center and stood by the campfire and played flutes and sang and so on forth, it would be fucking incredible.
Right.
And then you take them to New York and you put them in a studio and you wonder why it doesn't feel the same.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
And it's like, if you work in the studio and that is your environment, that is your environment.
Right.
We play live. That's what we do. Why are we in the studio trying to be studio musicians? We don't do that. And the other thing is this recording is not for public dissemination. It's pornography compared to music that you hear on the radio. It is raw. It's full of error. You know what I mean? Right. It isn't commercial. What is commercial music, David?
It's a good question.
I'll answer it.
Okay.
Every song on a CD is a commercial. They're all 3 minutes long. Right. The musicians or the company picks the song that will advertise the record.
Right.
It's 3 minutes long. They play it on the radio, and you get a 3-minute advertising, buy our CD.
Right. So it all
that is commercial. That's what makes it commercial. And it has to be understood, and it has to be acceptable, and it has to be, it has to be easily absorbed by the public. And I don't have a problem with it, but let's call it what it is.
Right.
And I'll see, why is a song normally 3 minutes long?
My initial thought process on that would be like, well, it'd be the limitation of what it's recorded on. But what it's recorded on is what's also trying to be sold, right? So,
well, you're close. You're very, very close. That's a very good answer. But the actual answer is they're 3 minutes long because that was all they could record on an acetate in 1920.
Yeah.
Duke Ellington was known to he was known in the business as the master of the 3-minute orchestral piece. He could write incredible pieces of music in 3 minutes. They lay it on the acetate. You only got 3 minutes, brother.
Yeah.
And that's why they're 3 minutes. It wasn't until into the 50s, I think there were long playing records. Remember those?
Yeah.
That's where the LP comes from, long playing. They were not 78s. A 78 is 3 minutes long because that's how big the fucking acetate is. That's why they're 3 minutes long. Well, this is, how long a fucking ago is that?
Yeah. It's crazy.
Why are songs on the radio still 3 minutes long? Because they're fucking commercial, David.
Right. No, I agree with that. And I think it's continued the same way to the streaming platform. Now, whatever, I think it's around the same amount of time as length and tune, but now it's formatted to be perfect. Like to quantize these beats and to auto-tune.
Well, maybe you could educate me about that, but I don't really know about that. I don't know about any of that shit.
It's the same shit, different diaper. Now it's like essentially it's what it
Funny,
is.
man. That's
The
good. That's really good.
but it fits into the same type of thing, but now it's going out of a different technology. Now it's going through people's phones and into their headphones and like but it's still the same thing. It's like marketed to be put in a certain category that is now algorithmically fed to whoever likes it. So it's a little
Well,
more
here,
vast, but
back up a minute, and okay, you say it was marketed.
right. So like
Okay, so what motivates a musician to play music?
well, I would hope it to be self-expression and conveying
Well,
your
that's extremely radical.
right.
It's a simple way I look at art.
Right.
I'm an artist. I'm not a musician. Okay, I'm not a musician. I hold musicians in high esteem. I am not a musician. I'm an artist. Okay, and I am a radical artist. And if you look at art as an art form, you can look at it, and especially music, for example, because there's a business involved. You should look at that and you go, what can I get from that for myself?
Mm.
Or you look at and you go, what is it?
Mm.
I fall on that side. What is it? I have curiosity. As my wife defined me to myself, she said, you are curious. That is why you do what you do.
Hmm. I think that's a good end to be
And
into it.
that and I'm not, believe me, setting myself above anyone. I think people should do as they feel they should do. I just don't want to take shit for being who I am.
Right. No, I agree with that. I think maybe that intimidates people sometimes is because a lot of people aren't like ultimately all knowledge, right? Everything we're taking in is self-knowledge, how we relate to it and how it defines ourself to ourself in a in a
Right.
way. And I think someone who has a sense of self is intimidating to someone who doesn't. So and it's an interesting thing because like someone who is like progressed in a way can either uh, enlighten someone or cast a shadow over them and like put them in a space where they want to like see how that person got to be who they are and maybe find a way to do that to themselves or they cast it aside and like you know. So it's a that's I think that's everyone should do that. Everyone should be striving to be themselves and should be curious and should fuck up the form and play the three and you know what I mean and play the one and try whatever resonates with you.
Yeah, but just remember, there's no money there.
Right. That's true.
Not at this point.
Yeah.
And just remember that, and it's been fun talking with you.
Yeah, Robert, thank you so much for hanging out with me for this long and for like I was saying at the beginning of it, when I start to do these interviews, I start to listen intently. So if it sounded
Hmm.
like I wasn't saying anything, I'm hearing you out. And
I
just
that's I'm not. It's not about that for me, man.
I know, I just want to let you know like I've been pretty stoked about this interview for a while and have done a fair amount of research. So I've been like excited to talk to you and hear your story. So I really appreciate you taking time to do this and reaching out before and
No,
going out of
I
the way.
enjoy it.
This
I enjoy it. I
awesome.
enjoy talking about the band and music and stuff is my life, and I don't know. I think we missed some things, but
We've been at it for a while, but we got.
well, we could go on. I mean, we didn't talk about. There's a lot of stuff we didn't talk
I know.
about, but
We missed missed a chunk of it. But we could do a part two. That'd be cool too.
well, you let me know when you want to do that, and maybe I'll send you some of my visual art so you can
Yeah.
see what else I do.
Yeah. No, that'd be awesome. Because I got plenty of I got more questions about poetry and the writing process and so let's do that. Let's put a pin.
Yeah, sure.
We'll wrap it up with this one, and we'll plan another one in a couple weeks.
All right.
Awesome.
That sounds good to me.